Hi students, I'm Una.
And I'm Scott.
I'm a UK OET teacher.
I'm also an OET teacher from the UK.
We've been teaching students to pass their exams for many years.
And now we're excited to help you pass your exams too.
This is the Swoosh English OET Podcast.
Let's get started.
Are you struggling with your OET exam preparation?
Are you unsure how to reach your target score of a grade A or B? Let Swoosh English help you get there.
Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click the link in the description for your free OET complete guide to writing.
Everything you need to know to pass your OET writing step by step. Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click on the link in the description below. Hi everyone,
Hello.
and welcome to the Swoosh English Podcast. My name is Scott.
And my name is Una.
And today we're going to go through another section of the OET examination, focusing on the reading section. What are we doing today?
So we're doing part B, reading part B. So I hope you guys all had the chance to listen to part A podcast, where we got into more detail about how to approach part A and lots of tips for that. And today we're going to be looking at part B, which of course comes combined with part C, but we're just going to look at part B individually.
Yeah, it is important because obviously part B and part C are combined, as Una has said, but both
in
sections...
terms of like the paper you get,
right.
You know.
Yeah, the paper, they're all done in the exact same paper, but there also are a lot of fundamental differences between part B and part C. Therefore, it's important to dedicate a podcast episode to both so we can talk about the differences and the strategies and tips for each section.
Definitely. So let's have a look then at the reading section overall. It's good to start it off just so we know we're all on the same page and know what we have to do in the reading section. So of course, the reading texts within the reading section of the OET exam are, common to all professions, okay? So you don't need to worry too much about not being able to understand a particular kind of text.
Let's be honest, most of you guys, either with Swoosh English or not, are probably actually doctors or nurses. Don't think, oh my goodness, why was I a dentist? I'm a physiotherapist. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to do very well at those. It's completely fine. All of these topics are okay to learn for each topic.
Yeah, and guys, that was just a wonderful, chance for you to work on your listening skills there. He went so high-pitched. I don't know if you're going to be able to understand what he said. Anyway, that's a
Type
good
in the
test of your
comments, what did
listening.
Scott say in that part where he went all high-pitched?
Exactly. Okay, so then we have the three different parts. We have 42 questions broken into three different parts in your reading section. Part A, of course, is 15 minutes with 20 questions, and you will have the 15 minutes to do that, and then the examiner will take away your paper.
So, yep, strictly timed. Don't hold on to it. It's being taken away.
Yes. Then we have our part B, which has 6 texts and 6 questions, and we're going to get into that in more detail today. And part C, which has 16 questions, okay?
Making
and
45
we have
minutes
lots
in
of
total.
45 minutes in total for part B and C. Lots of different kinds of questions throughout the parts then. So we have in part A, gap fill, matching questions, and skimming and scanning, and everything is very important for that task. For that particular section.
Yeah. So answer short question style.
Yes. Then we have part B, which we're going to get into today, of course, is our multiple choice type questions. Of course, so many of us will have, had an exposure to multiple choice questions as in our general English study. I know in just general English textbooks, there's always multiple choice questions as we're going through those. And then part C, of course, is your long text where you have to understand comprehensive text and identify points of view.
And it is probably the most significant part of the OET examination in terms of the length, the complexity of the text, as well as the answers. But that will be dedicated in another podcast to that. Let's look at part B today.
Okay.
So as we mentioned for part B, you have 6 short texts. They are between 100 and 150 words. And there are 6 items of questions, of which there are 3 different multiple choice answers in total.
So
for
there's
each
3
section.
answer options within each multiple choice question. Great.
Now, these workplace texts are something that you will have come across before, but not necessarily in English. That's why it's very important, of course, that you do obviously understand the format of these texts when you're doing your own OET preparation, and also then think about how you can prepare for understanding these texts and the answers that may be in English as well. They are very short, but they are incredibly dense. There's a lot of information being given at any
Yeah, they can
any
be quite
point.
heavy texts. yeah.
And they don't actually refer to any sort of like patient assistant that you might actually be familiar with in your own medical profession. Instead, they focus on policy documents and workplace updates, etc. So they all are very heavy and wordy.
Yeah, so like hospital notices, instruction manuals, and procedures in hospitals, these kind of things. And as Scott said, something that of course you would be familiar with if you're working in a hospital or you're working in a medical workplace now, but perhaps you're reading them in your own language, you're not actually reading them in English. So if that's the case, it's very important to make sure that you don't just rest on your laurels and take these kind of documents, read them in your own time, do lots of mock exams, things like this.
Perfect advice, Una. Also, what's important to note as well is that these are general workplace documents. They will not actually favor any profession over the other. So if you're a doctor, you should understand them all within the same reason as a dentist, a physiotherapist, or a neurologist, for example.
Okay.
It will all be fine.
Yeah. And the questions then really are focusing on either some main detail in the text, or gist. So the overall purpose of the text, or the overall, meaning, what exactly is this text trying to achieve? And we're going to get into more detail as to how you can assess really in the question, how you know if the question's asking you about the gist, the overall meaning, or if it's asking you about some particular detail in the text.
So it is important to contrast this particular section with part A, in which you are looking for specific words in the exact same form. That does not apply for part B, where instead you're reading around ideas, you're taking ideas within a sentence or within the whole text overall, and you may have to reword them or paraphrase them in order to actually assess the answer that you might see in the multiple choice style.
Yeah, but you're going to have to be able to understand paraphrasing, because paraphrasing is going to happen. So just before we start to get into, some really specific tips in relation to approaching the method for part B, just let's go over a little bit about scoring, just in relation to, obviously most of our students here want to achieve 350. They want to achieve a B in all sections of the exam. And just to reiterate again, that means that you need to show a high level of performance, ability to use English with fluency and adequate accuracy, and that it's adequate for professional needs. So this is the level of reading we want to achieve.
So many of you are quite possibly familiar with the IELTS examination. Maybe you considered doing IELTS instead of OET, but you thought OET is probably the more practical examination and maybe more useful for whatever purpose you're taking the exam for. So just to correlate OET B with IELTS, it's approximately 7 to 7.5 on the IELTS scale, which is quite a high level of English. You'll need to score on average 350 in the reading section out of 500 in the official OET scale. But what does that actually mean for how many marks you have in the OET examination versus corresponding that onto the scale? Well, as we know, you are OET reading is scored out of 42 in total. So if we're going to correlate that B with how many marks you need out of 42
in reading,
it is around about 65 to 70%, which means about 30 out of 42 in total for the overall exam. Brilliant. So if we look at part B is obviously quite short, only 6 marks in total. What is 65 to 70% of 6? It's about 4. Obviously aim for 6 if you can get 6 the best.
Always aim for the best.
But settle for 4 if you're getting 4. And that is, of course, taking that average across all 3 sections, 65 to 70% of the score.
Great. Okay, so that's good to know, obviously. But as Scott said, we're always going to go for, getting full marks and things like that.
Don't get an A if you can, even better.
Okay, so then what about how we approach this task? So because of the way it's broken down in terms of the 45 minutes for part B and C and the 6 questions versus the 16 questions, we're going to give about 2 minutes per question, really, for each.
So that's a total of 12 minutes you got to ideally spend on part B. And of course, this is only a guideline. Maybe you're incredibly quick at doing part B and you're doing it in 8 minutes. Instead, you need extra time on part A or on part C.
No, not part A. Part A is already gone.
Oh, yes, of course.
Part A is already gone.
On part C.
Yes.
So you might need extra time in part B. You might need extra time in part C. This is just a guideline for your time. But of course, you can change this as necessary for yourself.
Of course, yeah. So the first thing you're going to want to do is perhaps just have a look at the text and decide what is the overall topic. Because this is a really good thing to do, because actually you guys are obviously all medical professionals. You can have a look at this and see, okay, am I familiar with this topic? Is this something I can maybe draw my background knowledge on? Now, what I mean by that isn't that you're going to, obviously use your own background knowledge just to answer the question.
Solely answer the question. No. That's not going to happen.
You need to obviously make sure that you're answering the question, in a way that really matches that reading text. But if you have a good idea of the topic, you're going to be able to orientate your way through that text easier.
For example, you might be, very good points in it, you might actually see your first question, your first text, it might be obviously a sentence completion with the multiple choice answers. You might see some keywords such as bed baths or procedure, and you think, hey, wait, I've given bed baths before and I know about the procedure. And you look about the information that might be in these options and think, okay, that makes sense to me. That doesn't make much sense. Neither does that one. So I think prediction-wise that I'm looking for A, possibly. Now, of course, this can actually focus in your own ability to extract that information when you are reading for
it just gives you more of an idea to really orientate as you go along. But at the end of the day, all those answers are plausible. They're
every
possible.
answer is plausible.
So just make sure you don't rely on it too much. It's just to give you an idea to orientate yourself and how you can make use of your professional experience. Of course, definitely do that if you think you can do it. And
but of course,
so then we're going to move into, of course, reading the question, okay? So now we're going to look at the options carefully within each multiple choice question. So when you look at these multiple choice questions, it's not the same as part A where you can just simply skim the question, and get an idea. You need to read them in detail.
It's not going to be a superficial reading in which you very obviously or evidently see a word from skimming, blah, 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 blah. Oh, there's a word, extract it and put it in.
Yes.
It's not as simple for that. The detail, you have to read it in a much more detailed way. And why is it important for you to read in a much more detailed way, Una?
Because you need to understand the overall meaning of each part of the sentence. It's not just about, looking for the word and straight away, because paraphrasing is crucial here, okay? A lot of the time, the sentence, the question, the statement, whatever it is, in the multiple choice question, it will be stated, and then whenever you go over to the text, it'll be paraphrased to be put in a different way, okay? So you need to be really careful about understanding the overall meaning of it, so then you can identify the difference in how it's stated in the text.
And there may be different ways that it's, for example, it might be completely reworded. The keyword that you saw in the answer option might be there in a different form, or it might be there in a completely different word overall. It may be restructured in the idea as well, or there may be other words that come around the sentence which actually might change the meaning overall, ever so slightly, or completely contradict it. So that's why it's important to read around the whole idea that comes within the word that you think might actually give away the answer, because you're not looking for specific words, you're looking for key details overall in the greater context of the sentences or within the sentence. So make sure
that you understand the key point, and of course scanning is really not going to give you maybe enough of an idea of that. You're going to want to read it in detail, so that is important. Are you struggling with your OET exam preparation?
Are you unsure how to reach your target score of a grade A or B? Let Swoosh English help you get there.
Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click the link in the description for your free OET complete guide to writing.
Everything you need to know to pass your OET writing step by step. Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click on the link in the description below. Yeah, so let's probably get into a bit now about how we can recognize paraphrasing and also other distractors which may appear in the text overall. So, as I said, the word might be different overall. It could be reformulated in a sentence, or there might be words around it which completely change the meaning of a sentence. For example, you might have different modals which might be used. Maybe the statement used the word must on the actual statement within the text says should. Okay, you think must and should have a slightly different meaning. Does that answer the question fully of the idea I have? You might also have quantifiers, for example, some or all or none, which completely change the wording of the sentence. These are just simply ideas, but it's important to pick out all of these words which can reformulate the idea of a sentence. Even as the word that you think might be paraphrased have the same meaning, or is it completely different? That's why attention to detail is key in this section.
Attention to detail, and of course, having a good range of vocabulary as well, and being able to know a lot of different words and a lot of different ways in which to say different things. So your reading outside. And spending a lot of time reading in your spare time is going to be really important in order for you to be able to catch the paraphrasing and catch those distractors, like you said.
Yeah,
if you see the word
important.
all, but in the text it says some, that could be a way to kind of trick you. Everything's the same except for those words. So be really careful to keep an eye out for those kind of distractors.
And also speaking about distractors as well, which is actually quite common in most examinations and also in OET as well, is that you may see a given sentence, all the ideas of the sentence, which I think, oh, okay, well that answers that previous point, but then the following sentence might actually have some additional information which contradicts the previous idea, and then you might think, okay, that doesn't apply anymore because this has been said in X, Y, and Z part of the passage overall.
Yeah.
So it is important to look out for these distractors. Read around, don't read for words, read for ideas.
Yeah, read for ideas, read for key points, and that kind of meaning. Okay, so as we said, the multiple choice questions then can relate to either the gist, the overall purpose of that text, or they can relate to some detail. So if I give you an example of like a detailed question, it would be the manual informs us that the blood pressure monitor, right? So that's just the question. And then you have obviously your different answers. So we can see from that question, it's asking us for a detail about the blood pressure monitor. For example, one of the answers may not work correctly in close proximity to other devices.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an example of a detailed question. And for that one, you're going to be able to need to find information which, as we said, actually contradicts the other answers. Okay. To prove that they are not correct. Okay. And then, of course, we have our gist one, which is finding out overall meaning. So an example for this question would be, the purpose of this email is to, and then we have our three options. So as you can see, that's talking about the overall meaning, the reason why that particular text has been written.
So you have to think overall which themes and ideas are being stressed throughout the entire text. Where is this information being found as well? So I think what's quite useful for this gist style question is where we locate that information. Think in any reading passage, where is the most important information usually included? Well, a good way to start will obviously be at the beginning of it or also at the end as well.
That's
obviously, most emails and information wants to get the most important parts at the very beginning. After all, that's where you want to make use of your reader's time, or also at the very end where they might make use of a summary or conclusion. But I also want to stress that the information that you might find that gives that overall meaning can be found throughout the text.
Yeah.
But still,
just some ideas.
Look at the beginning and also the end. So
and you can ask yourself questions such as, why was this text written? You know, when you're looking for those gist reasons or the purpose of a text. Why was this text written? Which part of the information is a background? Which part of the information is the main focus? Look at the verbs. That's very important. Look at the verbs such as report, explain
or also remind, because they're suggesting of an overall gist style question, which cannot be emphasized by details alone.
Yeah, very good. So these are the kind of things that you need to consider. So make sure that you actually assess what kind of question it is. Is it asking for gist or details? And then that will really help you as you start to look through the text and find your answer if you know what kind of question it is.
Great advice. Looking for that language is essential. So, just to summarize exactly what we've talked about so far, remember that you are looking for ideas within a text, which could be intricate details contained within the passage. Obviously, you're not looking for keywords, you're looking for ideas around those words, or you're looking for information which can be implied throughout the entire message or throughout the entire text via a gist style question. What does the text say? What are we reading? What's being reported? What is being reminded? What is being expressed?
Definitely.
Keywords like this.
So then we'll finish today with some tips. How exactly can we prepare and increase our scores for reading part B?
Well, it's one thing I want to say, which is probably very useful for students as well, is that you may not actually deal well with a degree of ambiguity in these texts. You might be thinking, but I'm not comfortable looking for information which may or may not be there in the text. I'm not exactly sure what's being inferred
and
here
maybe you
with
panic.
the question, and then you panic overall.
And you panic if you don't know every single word.
Exactly. Now, you have to understand that there is going to be a fair amount of ambiguity in these texts. They are quite dense. They are quite complicated. You're not going to know everything, maybe not even in your own native language, but especially not in English. So there needs to be a degree of what we call ambiguity tolerance in these reading passages. And you have to be okay with that as well. It's fine if you don't know every word. Remember, you're looking for the ideas which are expressed around that word. So that's what's important to know.
Very good, yeah. So make sure that you are obviously practicing reading for overall meaning and practicing reading and understanding different details. And then also working on your paraphrasing and being able to recognize paraphrasing. And of course, that all comes down to, your wider vocabulary as well. So being able to read, read in detail and read under quite strict time pressure, but then really being able to understand lots of words. So make sure that you're reading in your own time and compiling a vocabulary journal. So the more you read, the more new words you will come across, the more words you will recognize, and paraphrasing won't be an issue too.
So just to expand upon that, not only is it important for you to actually read these kinds of policy documents that in English, because obviously you want to familiarize yourself with them in English to improve your own ability to score highly in this part of the OET examination. But as Una said, it's highly important that you do supplementary reading outside of these texts in a more general context. Now, of course, these don't necessarily have to be medical, but the more medical reading sections that you do in your own time, then as Una said, the more you can improve that list of vocabulary, the more that you can improve your own skimming and scanning skills that are very useful for this. But of course, any reading that you can do outside of medical, something that you find quite enjoyable, might be a hobby of yours you have or something of special interest, then you're still actually practicing some of the soft skills which are required for this exam. Like, what's the writer trying to say? What's the main point of this passage? What information can I get?
Exactly. Actively read these texts. Ask yourself these questions. And it doesn't matter sometimes if you just want a break and you want to just read something a bit more enjoyable, like politics.
That's it.
Light and fluffy politics.
Politician
anyway,
here.
So if you want to read something a bit more enjoyable sometimes from a newspaper or a blog that you find interesting, of course that is going to benefit you as well. Don't feel like it's wasting your time. And we say this every time we're talking about reading, but that's because it is a really good point. And also do an OET exam readiness test. Of course, here at Swoosh English, we have these available. That means that you can just give yourself a really good idea of where are you currently at. What score are you sitting on? How much work do you need to do in order to get your desired score?
And what I have to say about that is that a lot of students, unfortunately, really underestimate how much time or preparation is required from getting, for example, a C grade in all sections to a B grade in all sections. There's a lot more time involved. And obviously, we want you to avoid spending a lot of money on the OET examination, having not understood just how much was needed for you to prepare. So an OET exam readiness test is useful for you just to get a guide about exactly where you are, how much you're progressing, how much you need to get to the level you can get, and also be realistic about what's needed what is needed for you to be done to get there, and how much time it will take. It'll save you time, it'll result in a lot less stress for you, and ultimately it will probably save you money as well.
Definitely.
Essential.
Yeah. And once you have done that, make sure you get your hands on some mock exams so that you're able to actually practice and be very familiar with the organization and the overall, approach that you have to take in relation to these sections.
Exactly, which also, to expand upon that as well, is the point of mock examinations too, is not to familiarize yourself with the test, but also for a chance for you to do the test under strict examination conditions. And most importantly, we're talking about time here. So yes, for example, in part B of reading, you might think, oh yeah, well look, I've got 6 out of 6. It's amazing, but it's taking you 40 minutes to do it. That's not what you unfortunately want to be at for the examination. You want to be able to do it accurately and within the time as well. So your own time management skills are important to assess how well you will do on the day of the exam.
Definitely. Yeah, so those are some really good tips there today. Any final tips that you want to add?
Any final tip? Well, I just want to say is obviously get some great materials to practice with. Make sure you understand the format of Part A, Part B, and Part C of the examination, especially Part B today of the reading examination. And do reading outside. Make sure that you are doing everything you can to improve your own knowledge of the examination, and that you feel like you are ready to do the examination via your own practice for reading Part B.
Yeah, great. Okay, so that's us going to finish up now. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
So we hope to see you again soon for Part C of the examination, which we'll actually expand upon with more information. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hope you find it useful. See you again. Bye.